Some games are great because of their engaging gameplay and interesting characters, while others are great because of their complex storylines and beautiful environments. Then there are those games that are a veritable work of art. This couldn't be any truer for 2019's grim Metroidvania action platforming masterpiece, Blasphemous. Inspired heavily by Spanish history and folklore as well as Roman Catholic iconography, Blasphemous follows the story of the Penitent One as he endeavors to defeat the miracle, a terrible curse that has fallen upon the twisted world of Custodia. With its hand-drawn pixel art style, terrifying enemies, and powerful, often surreal bosses and environments, Blasphemous has to be one of the best Metroidvania games in the last decade. Now in 2023, the endless cycle of death and rebirth begins once again with Blasphemous II. But what exactly is this second game about? And are there any new features to look forward to? Well, to help you out, we decided to put together 5 things you need to know about Blasphemous II before the game releases later this year. Also, if you haven't played the first game and the Wounds of Eventide DLC and are worried about spoilers, now's your chance to go play it, then come back and watch this video. As for the rest of you, here we go. Number 1. An all-new world. Blasphemous II picks up directly after the Wounds of Eventide DLC and sees the return of the solemn protagonist known only as the Penitent One. As it turns out, our tormented hero has been resurrected in a strange new world far from his final resting place. The only real option is to traverse this uncharted land and uncover the many secrets it holds. Now, the previous game took place in Custodia, which is described by some sources as a region, while others use the term realm or world. So depending on which applies, Blasphemous II either takes place in a different region or area outside of Custodia, or it simply takes place within another part of Custodia. I don't think this particular detail is all that important, but it would still be nice to know. In any case, I'm sure we'll find out more in the coming weeks, otherwise probably once the game itself releases. That said, I think that Blasphemous II's overall narrative is being deliberately shrouded in mystery so that the onus is on players to thread the different pieces together and find out the truth for themselves, which is actually a really cool selling point in my opinion. The good news is that Blasphemous II promises a fuller non-linear world to explore, complete with grotesque enemies and unforgiving traps. There are apparently no rules as to how you tackle these challenges, so I assume this means various approaches or paths to achieving objectives may be possible. That's exciting news and should add to the game's overall replayability. I for one am dying to check out this new gothic hellscape, and I have little doubt that you all feel much the same. Number 2. Old enemies and new threats. Naturally, with a strange new world comes some all-new enemy types to test your mettle. Judging by the announcement trailer, there are at least a few new types of enemies, including some leaping, rotting torsos that are kinda like the more horrifying zombie versions of Cheep Cheeps from Super Mario Bros. And how about these rather hefty-looking enemies that hurl spinning chandeliers at you? Spooky. Also, for those of you who might be wondering, some old favorites will be returning in Blasphemous II, like the Wandering Tomb, aka annoyingly hard to kill stone guy with whole grave on back, and acolytes, who I affectionately refer to as Candle Boys. I have a feeling that those enemies that gave you a significant amount of trouble in Blasphemous will be back in Blasphemous II because, well, let's face it, you're supposed to be suffering, right? And suffer you shall, brothers and sisters, suffer you shall. Number 3. New weapons. Yes indeed, while Blasphemous allowed you to wield the power of mea culpa, a sword born from guilt itself, Blasphemous 2 includes all new weapons so that you can customize your approach and play the game the way you prefer. Looking at the announcement trailer, there seems to be another type of blade or scimitar that the Penitent One is able to wield, as well as an enormous flail that I'm guessing deals a substantial amount of damage to foes. I'm also pretty sure that he's wielding 2 swords in certain shots, so there's clearly several weapons you'll be able to use. I did really like the simplicity of just using mea culpa in the original game, but I will admit that the prospect of being able to use different weapons and fighting styles is very exciting. I'll also bet that certain weapons are faster than others, while the attack speed of others will be slower but more devastating. This new dynamic should allow players to experiment a little bit and add to the game's replayability, so I'd say it's a net positive overall. Personally, I'm looking forward to trying that flail out, it just looks too brutal. Number 4. More epic boss battles. The original Blasphemous featured some intense and varied boss battles, so it really goes without saying that Blasphemous 2 will have much the same, although this time the encounters may be even more difficult than before. I'm reasonably sure the armored guy with the red cloth draped over his head and the giant skeleton wielding a massive club are bosses, and I'd also be willing to bet that the big brown guy with the helmet similar to yours standing in front of the bells is also a boss. One thing for sure is that I'm definitely intrigued by this cast of characters and am looking forward to learning more about them soon enough. I'm not too sure who the big boss is in Blasphemous 2, but the end of the Wounds of Eventide DLC should provide us with some clues. Of course, this boss may not be the ultimate threat in the game, and there may well be a DLC or 2 for Blasphemous 2 down the line. So as always, everything will be revealed in due course. In any event, be sure to study the bosses you encounter closely and learn their attack patterns so you can limit the number of times you die. And kudos to any of you who managed to best a boss on the first try. That's some Giga Chad stuff right there. And now the final item on our list, number 5, new combos and finishing moves. To make combat more satisfying, Blasphemous 2 will allow you to string together all new combos and pull off some merciless executions on any enemies you manage to incapacitate. While the executions are obviously a nice touch, the ability to carry out devastating combos with your new arsenal of weapons should bring an entirely new dynamic to the game's fighting mechanics. If there's a room full of enemies that are closing in on and beginning to overwhelm you, busting out one of these new special moves should give you the breathing room you need to gather your strength and carry on. The Penitent One was highly skilled and powerful in the original game, so it stands to reason that he will be even more threatening in this sequel. But if you think that will make the game easier, then you're sorely mistaken. Blasphemous 2 is set to be another descent into the madness of unbridled devotion and compunction, so my advice is to sharpen your blades and get ready for the fight of your life. Blasphemous 2 will release at some point in summer 2023 and will be available on Xbox, PlayStation, PC, and Nintendo Switch. And that wraps it up for this video. What did you think of our list? And is there anything else you know about or would like to see in Blasphemous 2? Please let me know in the comments. Make sure you give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already so I can keep bringing you the latest tech, gaming, and VR news on a daily basis. That's it for now. From me and the acolytes here at Metasquad, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Later!